So I got an email today from a subscriber. His name is Tom, and he was asking if he said, "Hey Hero RR, love your videos. I was wondering if you could let me know on the best way to buy a used bike. I have a small budget of around $3,000. I want to get a Ninja 400 or SV 650, and I just am nervous about buying a used bike, not sure what to look for." Buying a used bike, let's talk about it. As you guys know, all my bikes have been pretty much used. I've never bought a new bike before, so I think I have a little bit of insight. I know the season is starting. I will make a full video eventually on a used bike checklist and all of this, but let's pretend I'm here to buy this RC51. Now, if I'm going to do a checklist on what to look for when buying a bike, anybody can look at a bike and look for scratches, dents, breaks in the fairings, all of that. Anybody can do that. What I like to do is, before I get started, is ideally you would have a little bit of information from the seller. He would explain to you if the bike has ever been down before. Oftentimes people don't know. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah, appreciate it. No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm just pulled over. Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you. So anyway, the first thing you would check on with your bike is if it had been down. And the best way to look at that is you would check out the bar ends. And usually what happens is people drop the bike, they don't replace the bar ends. They might replace the fairings, but the bar ends always get overlooked. So you would check to see if the bar end has any scrapes on it, anything like that. They usually don't get scraped on their own. It's usually only when somebody drops the bike. So check the bar end, check the lever, these little balls right here. Usually there'll be a scrape there too. And the mirror. The mirror will usually have some sort of scrape on it. One of those three. Another place to check that people often forget is the foot pegs. Usually right here or right here. I would always check for if the bike had been laid down. If you get evidence of a laydown, then very carefully look at the paint. Make sure that there's no repairs on the paint. You want to make sure that the paint is OEM as well. The fairings are OEM. I mean, it's okay to buy a bike with aftermarket fairings, but you want that disclosed because that does affect the price. So if he says it's OEM fairings or he doesn't believe it's aftermarket, one way to tell is usually with OEM bearings, especially on a bike like this, is the graphics right here are usually stickers, and you can see that. My nail will catch that. So this is a sticker, and that's how you know this is OEM. Not perfect, but that's a quick way of finding out. There's also some other telltale signs you can tell. I would also look at the hardware. Make sure there's no mismatched hardware. If there is, it's not a reason not to buy it, but it's the signs of an amateur working on a bike. A shop would never use mismatched hardware. A quality shop would never do that. The oil level, usually you have a sight glass right here. I could tilt my bike up a little bit. I'm kind of on a hill, but yeah, you can see the oil. Mine's nice and clear. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know. But nice and clean oil. It's just good to know. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if it looks real bad, then you know the bike's been sitting or not been serviced. But anyway, that's like the first things I look at. The next thing I would look at, if you could pop the trunk, take a look at the wire and make sure there's no splices. Another thing you want to look at is mods. Usually, bikes are not modded tastefully. Most bikes are completely gross. They have terrible modifications on them. If it's tastefully done, that's fine. It adds value a little bit. But OEM is always going to be the best. If you can find yourself an OEM, I would want everything OEM if I could. That's my preference. But if it has the mods, make sure you want the mods and don't pay extra for the mods. If somebody buys a bike brand new for $5,000 and then they buy a $500 exhaust, they shouldn't be asking $5,500 for that bike. That's just ridiculous. It doesn't add value to the bike. Now, if they have the aftermarket exhaust and the stock exhaust, then it adds value because you can put the stock one on and sell the aftermarket one and make some money. Anyway, let's go ahead and ride a little bit because I am sweating right now and I need to get some airflow. I got my manual switch on, that's why my fans are kicking on. It's actually not that hot on my bike, but it is hot in a leather jacket. Oh. That feels good, that airflow. And I have like some sweat on my body too, so the airflow is just going, it's cooling me down because the sweat. Kind of gross, but whatever, I'm gonna wash my jacket. When you're buying a used bike, another thing to keep in mind is the title. I would only ever buy a clean and clear title. What this means is that the title is in the seller's name. Check that it is in his name. And also that it's not been signed or dated or anything on the back. Now, every state is different, and I would also request a bill of sale. There's a couple variations online. I might make my own, but I would just get something that has the VIN number, the color of the bike, all of that. And that's another thing too. When you get the bike, when you get the title, look at what color it says. Does it match the fairings? Because if somebody changed over the fairings, like, it's good to know that. So that's something else to consider. And I think a big thing about it is to really talk with the seller. If the seller seems like he's rushing you to make the sale, then that's kind of not a good sign. And another thing too, in my opinion, never tell the seller how far you're driving. I'm not against driving 3-4 hours to see a bike, but don't tell the seller you're coming from 3 or 4 hours away, because the seller is going to realize that you probably don't want to come home empty-handed. So if you plan on negotiating with the price a little bit, don't immediately start him off with the leverage by telling him that you drove 4 hours to come here, because he knows, wow, you just did 8 hours of your day, probably 10 hours of your day when you include like getting ready and seeing the bike. You wasted your whole day to see this thing. You probably aren't going to walk away for a measly $100-$200. If you agree on the price over the phone and you're fine with the price and don't want to negotiate more, that's fine. And in fact, if you are coming from a far distance, let's say an hour plus, I think it's... Yeah, this gets a little... If you're coming from like an hour away, then I think it's super fair to actually negotiate the price over the phone. If you see a bike that's $5,000 over the phone or online, don't drive 4 hours and expect to get it for $4,000. Ask them first. Say, hey, I have $4,000. Would you take $4,000 for this? What's your bottom dollar? All they can say is no. And so if they say, yeah, I'll take $4,000, then that's fine. But yeah, I wouldn't disclose the location how far you're coming from if you plan on getting it for a lot cheaper. That's just my 2 cents on that. Oh, this looks like crazy dangerous. Another thing too is when you're looking over the bike, don't just look at the outside. If you have a flashlight or anything, really try to like poke your eyes under the fairings or where the engine is, anywhere around there. Look all around the engine inside the bike. Try to find any leaks and touch the bottom of the bike, touch the bottom of the fairings. Really like try to see what's going on down there, because it's really easy for somebody to just quickly wipe up a bike and list it for sale and try to get the most they can for it. But it's a little bit harder to detail the entire bike, and if it has some sort of leak somewhere, it's going to show it likely when you're looking at it. Now, it's not always perfect. When I bought my 954, my last 954, it had a valve cover gasket leak, and the seller actually wiped it, I think right before I got there, because it was completely dry when I looked at it, and when I got it home it had a drop. So that's something to consider as well. Oh, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but when you look at the bike, make sure it's cold. Ask the seller to please keep it cold. You want it to cold start. When you first get there, ask him if he had started it, because sometimes they like to forget. And if he says no, he has not started it, carefully put your hand near the engine case, make sure it doesn't feel hot. Touch it. Is it hot? You know, if it feels like it's warm, then don't touch it because you don't want to burn yourself. But if it feels like there's no heat, touch it. Make sure the engine's cold. You can even touch the exhaust, all of that. Make sure it's all nice and cold. And when you start the bike, turn the key and just observe what the coolant temperature says. If it says it's reading anything above like 100, then chances are he had that thing running. If possible, try to meet at a public place. Try to meet at a police station, a shopping outlet, something like that. Meet in the middle of the day and bring somebody else if you can. Let people know you're going. Tell 2, maybe 3 different people where you're going. Make sure that you're not alone if you can. I have bought bikes on my own, but if you could bring somebody else, I would recommend it. What's more important than the bike and the condition of the bike is yourself and your own personal safety. So please, please, please take a few moments to be careful about that. And I do plan on making like a full, well thought out version of this video on a used bike checklist and everything like that, where I can go over. I'll have a quick version and an in-depth version, but this is just kind of like a teaser because it's going to take a while for me to make something like that. So I want to just release something for you guys now so you can chew on that for now. But again, worry about your personal safety first, then worry about the authenticity of the bike. The title matters a lot. Then make sure you check the bike over real good. When you get home, you want to make sure you don't have any surprises. Good luck, Tom, on buying your first bike. Again, take a look at a few of them if you can. Look at one close by that's maybe out of your budget if you can. Maybe one at a dealership or something, and take a look at it and just look it over so you know what they should look like. Watch lots of videos, do lots of research, make sure you know what's the things to look at. All bikes are different. Some bikes have problems in other areas where other bikes don't. So you want to make sure you're looking everything over and you're taking a look and paying extra attention to the areas where that bike may need a little bit more attention. So anyway, guys, thank you again so much for watching. If you want a video response to a question, please email me at askheroRR@gmail.com. I'll have a link in the description below as well. And I will, if your question is interesting enough, I will make a video on it. So, and that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and bye-bye.